Crystal, when you're starting this company, you want to go hire the best in class. Not everyone has the capital, the resources, the revenue to go hire an A plus marketer, an A plus salesman today. So you're starting BentoBox 12 years ago. I am an A plus salesman. I know I can go take BentoBox and sell it to every restaurant in the world. But today I want a $500,000 salary. How do you entice me to come work at your company today?
I think I was always really good at giving ownership, especially in things that I knew I wasn't the best at. So this idea of ownership, I think was really enticing for someone who was like at the top of their game, but then needed that chance to be at the next stage, like become a leader or get to the next level of leadership or had a seat at the table. So I think that always was a great way to do that. And then I do think that anyone who worked for us or interviewed with us, I think they felt the mission drivenness. And, I always hated the question during interviews, like, what's your culture like? I was just like, you just feel it, because with culture, we were intentional about it, but it did like evolve naturally. But I do think we had like an incredible culture. Like everyone loved what they were doing. They were all in. Everyone was like cool and nice and supportive. And I think people felt that and they wanted to be in that kind of environment as well. So those are the two kind of things outside of capital. And then equity, and in this case, like the equity mattered in the end,
Looks like it paid off. I think people
Yeah,
were
it
pretty
worked.
happy.
Yeah.
You talked about culture. There's a couple like nuances that I do in culture that to really help entice employees and make sure they're really like warm and fuzzy at all times. Because I think one of the best things I've learned thus far is that the cost of change of a strategic employee is the biggest expense on your P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want that opportunity cost to continue to have churn at your company. There is
Yep.
a tactic that I learned, actually, I heard this from Scott Galloway, that he said, if you have 4 people that want to go do anything within a company, but as long as there's 4 of them together, they can go to Tulum for all he cares. They can have his credit card. I know that
Oh, wow.
sounds a little audacious, but what it
I
does
love
is
that.
that he found a statistic that people are more inclined to go to work every day because they like the people, they have friends at work, and that actually outweighs a salary and benefits and so forth. Because you want to go and feel exhilarated by the people you're talking to. Like if I love talking to Crystal every day, if you're paying me 120 and the guy next door is paying me 130, it really doesn't matter that much because I enjoy the workspace. Were there any cultural tips that you would give back now, looking at what you did, that you could have improved or that you implemented into the company that you knew it worked?
We always try to relate things back to like our mission. So one thing that we've had in place for a long time is that you can expense the tip at a BentoBox restaurant, and we encourage you to tip like 30%. And so that was always just like a really great thing in terms of staying in touch with our customers. And then we saw the thing that you kind of talked about is like people will go out to dinner, with Bento from like the team, and then like all like expense the tip and go to a customer, and there would just be so much like connection around that. I think we all worked really, really hard, and we all had high expectations of each other. And really early on, every Friday we had a 30-minute all hands, and me being the introverted person that I wanted it not to be always on me. And so we started a thing of everyone had to give thank yous. Every week you had to thank somebody on the team. It was just such a nice way to like see what was happening. Like you got a sense of like what everyone was working on. And it cultivated a culture of like gratitude and people being like in it together. And we kept that for post being acquired. We've evolved it into, now since it's bigger, it's like you opt in to give your thank yous, which I wish everyone would do it. We had like groups at some point. There's been many times where people are like, we should just get rid of all hands. I was like, we're not getting rid of all hands. And everyone's saying their thank yous. And, it's like you're eating your vegetables, you're saying your thank yous. And, and I think I would say that there's just like keeping that commitment, even if sometimes there are going to be times where cultural things feel contrived or cheesy or forced. It's not going to be, but it's just like the practice of it and the repetition and the consistency that I think makes it ingrained. And then cultural mistakes, I think that like all along the way, there are people who take away from the culture. And, it always takes you a little too long, you know, to do something about it, just so you think it's going to change. They do good work, but they're, rubbing the people the wrong way. I realize you can always find someone else that can do that good work, back to your point, if everyone's not friends, it's like, no one's going to want to be there.
Crystal, you talked about this thank you message that you guys were doing every Friday. If you can go back today and just do one thank you to someone over the last 12 years,
Oh,
a challenging
man.
question, who would you thank and why?
Well, I had this, I would do thank yous every time. But the one thing I never did, just because I was just trying to make sure I got lower in the org, is I never thanked my direct reports, intentionally. And I think I would thank my co-founder, Pierre. He was there like day one, and he was just the perfect co-founder. He was a great partner, but he was also very good at letting me lead. He just and just being very supportive. And I think that type of dynamic really worked for us and allowed what happened to happen. And I don't think I thanked them enough.